Hey all, welcome back to the channel. And today's video, as you can see, I'm going back to doing some videos on the Ableton Push 3, which is the device I have in front of me, which is the controller version. What does that mean? It means that I need to be tethered to my computer, to my laptop or whatever, in order to use this device. Yeah, you've got two versions, standalone and the one that I've just explained here now. So I've had this nearly, I think 11 months now I've had this device, and it's been a brilliant journey so far. I really still have enjoyed it from day one up until now. It's still a brilliant device and I still highly recommend it if you can. Get yourself in a position where you're fortunate enough to be able to buy one. And if you are like a heavy user of Ableton, you don't necessarily need to be a heavy user, but if you use that software, this will definitely complement your workflow on various levels. I think even if you're a beginner, which is what my videos, or when the type of audience my videos are aimed at, or you're an intermediate or advanced, there's definitely a way this device can help you. And once you start digging a little bit deeper into what it can do and its capabilities in terms of saving you time or giving you a more tactile interaction with the software, as I said from day one, highly recommended. It's a brilliant bit of device and I have not regretted it for a single day buying it. And there have been several updates since I purchased it as well, just to try and make things better. There are one or two things that I have or I wish were different, but I'll go over that in some other video if I can remember what they are. Today's video, again, like most of my videos, is to help the beginners and the learners of this device, to try and help them get into their brain how to use this device. And I try to zoom in on just particular areas of this excellent device. Today, I'm zooming in on the device view, which is just this button. You probably can't see it because my camera might not be picking it up very well, but I'm talking about the specific view here, the first one of four that you have, that are the different ways you can have your screen and your pad layout on the device. Yeah. The one over here is to do with sessions. So if you want to use your screen to see your clips and basically your tracks vertically and your scenes going horizontally, and you want to be able to use the jog dial or the D-pad to navigate through your scenes and clips, then that's what this view is about. And I have covered this briefly in some of my other videos on the Ableton Push 3. Yeah, same for the Push 2. Since Ableton Live 12, users of the Ableton Push 2 can now also navigate their scenes using the screen. Okay. And of course, if I'm in a track and I have or in a scene and I have something highlighted and I want to look at the MIDI events, or I want to look at the audio of this particular clip, then I can go into the clip view. And that's what this next button, going from right to left, this is what this one signifies. Okay, I can go into this actual particular clip, which is 8 bars long, and I can, by immediately turning my jog dial, I can start to highlight individual events. And I might want to shift this event left or right in terms of its timings. I might want to change the MIDI notes or whatever. I might want to select this note, and by pressing the jog dial, I've highlighted it, and I might want to select the next one, maybe skip the other one and then press this one and amend those 3 notes at the same time. And when I've finished, I can click on done to just accept that change. And basically this is what I can do in clip view. Look at the events or look at the waveforms and manipulate them directly on the device. Okay, I'll just click on done. I didn't really make any changes. And then we have our mixer view here, which is pretty useful for adjusting the volumes, pans, and your level of effects sends that you might have on any track. And you have 2 views, as I've mentioned also previously in my other videos, in that you have like a global view. And what does that mean? Well, it means that I have the volume now highlighted. So that means I can adjust the volume for up to 8 tracks at a time, or depending on how many fingers I have available. I can just go through and adjust my volumes using the dials at the top, okay? And if I want to adjust the pans for each one of the tracks, I can press and highlight the pans button, and you can see I've got various different values on my individual tracks, which is pretty good. And the same for my sends effects. For my send effects for the first one, which is A, I can adjust the levels for all of my tracks, and I can do the same for B, C, D, or however many I have. Okay, and then if I press the mixer button again, I go into an individual track view. And what does that mean? That means that if you can see, I have my buttons underneath my tracks, which are color coded to the name of the track in the screen. So whatever is in the screen, this particular track is yellow, my buttons reflect the colors, okay? When it doesn't, that's when you know that this particular track is highlighted, okay? So if I select track number 1, this is now highlighted, telling me that in this particular mixer view, everything on this screen pertains or relates just to track 1. So this view is good because you can adjust individual settings very quickly just for a specific track, yeah? So that's the difference between the two views. So I can quickly change a volume pan and my sends just for this track, okay? I can do the same for this track number 7 and so on and so forth. And going back to the default view, you can see what the difference is between the two. I can do one setting globally for all tracks, or I can go into it again and do multiple settings for one track at a time. It's just flip-flopping how you can access those parameters basically, yeah? Okay, so that's a basic recap of these 3 buttons. Let me go to the device view, and this is what I want to talk about today. It's just maybe a silly little thing, but for me I found it quite useful just to kind of get your navigation, especially for people who are new to this, the Ableton devices. Okay, so what does this mean? This is basically allowing me to look at the devices that I have on a particular track. And I'm not looking at my computer screen, which is just above here. I'm just concentrating solely on the Ableton Push, like as if, you know, maybe you're performing live, or you just have the device, you just have the standalone version, and you're just focusing on this machine, on the screen, on the buttons, on the dials, okay? So this button allows me on this track number 7 to see what devices I currently have there, okay? So just ignore everything else at the moment, just only zoning on this track. On this particular track, I have 2 devices. One of them is a device that generates sound. It happens to be a device made by Ableton called an operator, okay? And that's the sound it makes, okay? And I've got it to just make a sine wave kind of sub-bass sound, okay? And then the device after that, the audio output of that goes into an Ableton effects unit called a compressor, okay? And I now have that highlighted. And did you see what happened? The screen at the top changed. Why did it change? Because I'm now looking at this device in my rack of instruments or effects units. I've now got this device highlighted. So I want to see what parameters I've got that I can change, okay? So that's basically, you can have multiple devices going all the way across, and then you could be able to scroll across to the next list of pages showing your devices, whether they're effects units or they actually generate sound themselves, yeah? But you generally have these sound generating devices on the left with their audio piping into an effects unit or a chain of effects subsequently after that, okay? So this is very clean, very easy. Track number 7 is highlighted. I have 2 devices on it. I have device number 1 highlighted. Boom, that's it. Same track, but this time track number 2 is highlighted. That's it, okay? So let's go to this track. 1, 2, track number 4. I'm just going to collapse. This is a drum rack, which can be a little bit confusing, but it's the same thing. I have a, let me just collapse that. I basically had a drum rack that was expanded. I pressed it again to compress it into its just one level, so to speak. So again, I have track number 4. It's got a drum rack. This is the drum rack, and then after the drum rack, its audio goes into a compressor. Okay, let's have a look at this one. I have no devices on this one because this channel is actually playing an external instrument via MIDI. Let's see, what have we got here? We've got another drum rack, so let's go to something else. Let me go back. I'm gonna go across to another track. Let me highlight this one, which has got 3 devices on it. So look, if we go to track number 9, I've got that highlighted, and I have a simpler, yeah, and then I have 2 effects units. One of them is made by Ableton. It's just an inbuilt EQ device. And then I have a third-party delay device, yeah? So I have 3 devices here, okay? So let me just, that's basically it. That's the first level of what you need to understand, and I'm sure you already know that. But the little tip I want to give you, just so you can kind of get your bearings of where you are when you're navigating these devices, especially in a live situation. Like, going back to the beginning, as you can see, I have track number 9. Doesn't matter which track I have highlighted. I have a track highlighted, signified by the white button underneath my track, okay? Now, I know from experience that I have, and what I've just said, I've got that track highlighted with 3 devices, but I know instantly by looking at the colors of these buttons that I'm at the top level of this device. I'm at the top level. I'm not actually in my simpler and looking at the next level or the lower level of parameters. I'm not doing that yet. Same with this device. I'm only at the top level, just looking at the parameters of the page that I was last on. Okay, same with this one. I know it sounds a bit, just bear with me. It sounds a bit confusing, but just bear with me. Same with this second device, 1, 2, 3. Now, this second device for track number 9, I'm only at the top level of this device, okay? And it doesn't look like it has many parameters. How do I know that? Because I can still select my other tracks because they are showing their colors, which allows me to still select them, okay? Let me explain that further. I'm going back to track number 9. I have item or device number 2 highlighted. When I go into that device, see what happens to the colors of the other tracks and see if I can select them. So I'm going to press it, it's highlighted. I'm going to press it again to go into this device. And what happens? Am I able to select my tracks? No, I'm not. Because now I'm in this device, this EQ device, and the screen and the buttons above and below are now dedicated to providing me all the parameters of that device that I can adjust, okay? And this is one way of you knowing when you're in a lower level of a device and when you're not. I'm going to go back to the top level, okay? And I know, again, now I'm on this second device and I'm on the top page or the last page of that device. Why? Because I can still select other tracks. Okay, let me run through that again. I'm going back to track number 9. Let me go into the simpler device now. And I know I'm just at the top level of the simpler device because I can still select and go to my other tracks. Okay, sorry about that noise. But when I go into the simpler, go into a lower level to adjust, to go more deeper into adjusting specific parameters, I'm not going to be able to select my tracks because I'm now in that device, and the simpler device takes the name of what it actually, the sound I have in that simpler, it changes the name from simpler to the sound of the instrument or device that I have. And now these buttons have changed from allowing me to select my track and have now been replaced with parameters that I can select and change for that simpler device. I know it sounds a little bit confusing, but my main point is that you know you're inside of, when you're in device view and you know you can't select your tracks, you know you're in one of these various pages of a device, okay? And let me just quickly flip back to the top level. See, it changes to simpler. And again, I can select the track. So I know I'm just at the top value of that, sorry, the first set of parameters for this, or more specifically, the last page that I had highlighted for the simpler device, yeah? So let me go back into the simpler device again, track 9, my first device, I'm at the top level of it because I can still see the other tracks and select them or change to them. And once I go into the simpler, no, this is now, this screen, buttons, dials, buttons underneath are now dedicated to the simpler. So the page I was last on was filter. So if I go back to the top level, or the top level of the simpler, these parameters should stay there. So let's do that. And they do, but of course, because I'm back at the top level of the simpler, I can again select my tracks, okay? Let me go back into it again and go to maybe the pan page, yeah? So remember what these parameters are. And when I go back to the top level, they stay there. But again, I know I'm at the top level of the simpler device because again, I can select my tracks, yeah? So just remember that. And when you go into a device and you go deeper into it, the buttons underneath, if they have the parameters, will change to the color of the actual device, just like they do here. So now I'm in this third-party plugin delay effects device. It has different banks, and this is kind of what can be confusing because some third parties, it depends on how deep and how much they've gone into actually changing the names of these actual pages, so to speak, yeah? Because they might be called page 1, page 2, or they might just be called the actual parameter, like main, global, or filter, or something like that, like what we had on the simpler device. Or it might just be bank 1. In bank 1, I have these various settings. What do they mean? I don't know. It's specific to that particular device, yeah? But I know because it's a delay, some of these settings might make sense to me. But when you combine this with looking at your screen and you start adjusting some of the settings, it will just help you navigating that particular device, yeah? So I'm in the lower or the next level of this third-party plugin, and I know that because I can't select my tracks in device view, but I have 6 pages or 6 banks or 6 groupings of parameters that I can change, okay? And I can go, and one other tip, if you are in a device on a particular track and you can't remember, oh, what track am I on again? All you need to do is quickly press and hold one of the other buttons, like the mixer. I'm holding it and I'm like, oh yes, I'm on track number 9. If I let go, I can go back into adjusting the settings for track number 9, yeah? And even if you wanted to change to another track, you can, like, for example, press and hold the session view and go to, for example, track number 8 and let go. And then you're going to be on that track and you can go into the particular device and start adjusting the parameters again. And like, I'll give you an example. If you kind of followed along what I'm talking about, you will know I'm on track number 8, but I'm actually inside, and it was an operator. I'm at the next level of settings for that operator on track 8. Why? Because in device view, I cannot access my other tracks. I'm one level deeper, I'm inside the device, so the display is dedicated to changing parameters for this device. But when I go back up to the top level, yes, I know I can, and I get my track information for the other tracks, and I say, and then I know, yes, I'm in track number 8 at the top level of the operator at the last page I had selected. And that's important to know, because when you first boot up your computer or your Ableton Push, when you go into the device view, it always shows you the first page of that particular device. So let me go into the operator and I'm on the oscillators. That is what is always shown. It's always the first parameter or group of parameters is always shown on the top level. When I go back to the top level, you can see it's the same settings, yeah? But if I go in to the device again, to the next level, and say I went to LFO envelope and then went back up to the top level of this device, where I can select my other tracks, you can see it still keeps that screen there. So it might be, you know, you might want to have that setting, or those settings, to be able to adjust those in device view while still being able to select other tracks. So it might be an idea, if you're playing live, to go in to your particular track. For example, let's go into track number 9. I'm going to go into the simpler, and I might think I might want to have my filter page available, and without having to go in too deep into this device. So I'll just go into the simpler, go into my filter page and have that available, and then come back up again. Do you see what I mean? So when you're in device view, you can go to your various tracks, make sure you have the relevant page you want at the top level. So when you select that device, you can quickly access the parameters you want without going onto the next level and confusing yourself, if you see what I mean. So when I go back to track number 9, I know I had the filter page of the simpler at the top level, and it should be available there for me to start playing around with without me having to go into the simpler device. I pressed it, but it didn't go in. I'll press it again. Again, going into the filter page, messing around, then coming back, and so on and so forth. So I probably confused the hell out of everyone with this video. I hope I didn't. I was trying to be as clear as possible, but it's something I found useful. If anything, the only thing if you want to take one thing away, is just that remember that when you're in device view and you can select all your other tracks, you're just at the top level of whatever device you have highlighted. Yeah. But when you go into a device, into the next level of settings, and you're in device view and you can't select your other tracks from these bottom buttons, you know you're the next level deeper of that device. So that's basically the whole point of what I was trying to say. Okay, I hope you found it useful. If it's very confusing, leave a comment, let me know. I'll clarify again anything else that is not so that hasn't sunk in as yet. Okay, anyway, thanks for watching.